I'm out at Federation Forest State Park along Highway 410 in Washington State. It's cold today. My face is cold, my hands are cold. It's right down near freezing. There's just a little bit of new snow on the ground and it's really pretty here. Looking for a place to set up and do a quick oil painting. A lot of scat on the ground here in this grassy area. It's probably elk. I see a lot of elk in this area. Nice view here. I'm gonna keep walking though. Those moss-covered trees and dead branches are beautiful. That's really pretty. Got a nice deep view. Snow on the far hills. The clouds might break and I might get a little bit of light on those hills. I like this clump of trees here as well. I'm gonna keep walking a bit, but I might come back for this. This is a pretty view as well, with that wide, green, calm river and that bank of rocks with the snow on it. The middle ground trees, there's some beautiful moss covered deciduous trees there that are contrasting with the conifers, really pretty. And then a mountain in the background. Pretty view of that clump of trees from here as well. Well, I came back to this scene. This is what I'm going to paint. I like the subject composition. I've got a relatively flat place to stand there, so I'm hopefully not tripping over rocks. I mentioned in a recent video that I've been using the Plein Pro box and it's lasted okay, but I started to scar and crack the plastic palette in the Plein Pro easel. So I gave my wife a couple hints and she got me this Day Tripper box by Prolific Painter. It's got a glass palette. It's metal, it's nice and lightweight. It's a little heavier than the Plein Pro, but not noticeably heavier. So I'm excited to be working on the glass palette. It's got a couple hooks here so it fits right onto my existing tripod. You can adjust that out so you can raise and lower the palette. So this is my first attempt. I've got an 11 by 14 inch panel that I gessoed myself. This is that birchwood panel again that I get from Blick. I like painting on it. It gives a neat texture to play with. I've got my 1/3 lines sketched on there to help me set the composition really quickly. So in the scene, I'm going to zoom in for the composition. I'm going to zoom in something about like that. Maybe a little tighter. So I'm going to have those background mountains in the scene. I'll have part of this clump of trees on this bank here in the scene, and I'll situate the river horizon line on the lower 1/3 line. So something about like that. And I may kind of play with this clump of trees on the right hand side. I may bring it forward in the scene just a little bit, because I do like the way it kind of stands out as a single thing against the far hills. So I may play with that. I may open up a little bit more of a gap on that right hand side, so I maintain that feeling. I like the layers in this area here. You've got the river, you've got the rocky bank, you've got some bushes and deciduous trees, some pines, and then some more deciduous trees, and then the tall pines. And then even further down the river, you've got that same kind of undergrowth, deciduous trees, and then pine trees. That makes kind of a neat effect. There's a lot of color in the scene. I'm seeing a lot of alizarin and crimson in those deciduous trees, and a lot of yellow in the river, kind of a yellow-green in the river. So those will be the predominant colors in the underpainting. So I'll do a quick charcoal sketch and just kind of play with the composition a bit more, try to find something that I like, and then I'll move to the turpentine wash. Turpentine wash is just heavily diluted oil paint, a lot of artist turpentine, just to scrub in the main shapes and the color harmony, and maybe start to set up a little bit of a value pattern. As always, thanks for joining me. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Alright, here's the quick charcoal sketch. I made the river a little bit wider here in the foreground. I wanted to get more of a feeling of it coming toward us and expanding out. I've got one set of rapids here, another set of rapids there. When I'm looking at those rapids, right now I'm seeing just kind of a dull yellow-green, but I'm hoping if the sun comes through a bit, we'll see a little more color in that water. For instance, here in this foreground, where the sky is reflecting, I'm actually getting a little bit of a warmth, maybe a hint of burnt sienna. So I'll try to incorporate that in the calm. That'll contrast nicely with the green of the water in other places. I've got some trees here, and then those bands I talked about with the river receding here at this center of interest point. I've made this mountain a little taller in the distance with this snow. When the sunlight hits that snow up there, it makes a neat effect, because the mountain is becoming so light in value as it goes into the distance, into the clouds, and with the snow on it, that striking patch of white up there is interesting, and I want to kind of exaggerate that a little bit. Alright, I'll get started on the turpentine wash. rough wash in now. I'll let that set up just a little bit, have a cup of coffee and warm up. My hands are freezing. The paint's behaving a little strange because it's so cold out here. So it's not quite going down on the panel like I would expect, but we'll muddle through. Once that turpentine wash is set up, I'll take a brush with a little bit of turpentine and wipe away the lightest lights, like the rapids in the river, some of the stones in the bank, the snow on that distant mountain. And then I'll move into mixing the colors that I see in the scene. This glass palette is much better to mix on than that plastic palette. You can see the value of that is way too dark for the clouds in the sky. It's got to be much, much lighter. But I want to exaggerate the darkness of the clouds a little bit so that the snow on the mountains stands out. I'll add a little bit of yellow to this mix to gray it down since it's pretty vibrant red still, and more white to lighten the value. But I'll try to stay a step or two darker in value than the pure white so that I can get that snow to stand out on the hill. As I'm mixing these colors, I'm comparing them to the color I see in the scene, but also comparing it to the color I just mixed so that I can check value. As I move closer, as I move forward in the environment, I want the values to have more contrast and the color to have more vibrancy. Here I'm mixing up some very grayed out greens for the trees on the distant hills. I'm adding some of this Rembrandt cold gray. That works nicely to push things back. It takes down the color vibrancy and grays things out nicely. Puts in a nice coolness which lends to the feeling of distance. Take those colors I've mixed up now, and with as big a brush as I can manage, I'll paint the sky and the distant hills. getting a lot of dramatic light right now. That is really beautiful. That may be what I tried to capture. Sunlight has broken through behind me to the west. So that scene has changed as well. So yeah, I think I'll try to remember this lighting scenario right here. Strong light on the trees on the riverbank and the background hill mostly in shadow except for where the sun is hitting the top of the hill with a little bit of snow, hitting the snow on the top of the hill. Some colors mixed up now. These are the colors for the middle ground trees and some of the scrub brush. As it comes closer, it's getting warmer and the contrast is getting greater. I've also got some colors mixed up for the water, some cool greens and yellowish greens, a very grayed out yellowish green for the rapids. And I've got some colors, just color notes mixed up for the rocks I'm seeing. Especially here in the foreground, there's some very pretty orange and kind of a warm pink, pinkish lavender. So just some different notes there. I'm going to throw those down quickly. There's also some very dark stones, dark, like a dark grayed out burnt sienna, and a dark grayed out alizarin crimson stones, especially right on the edge of the water. So I'm cold, my hands are freezing. I'm gonna do this pretty quickly. I'm also hoping that I get that light effect again, so I can try to match a few more colors, what I'm seeing here as that sunlight hits those trees. So I'm going to be keeping my eye open for that. Alright, well I had a great time. It's chilly out here. I'm about frozen, but really beautiful. Just a beautiful spot. I definitely will be coming back here. Let me show you where I ended up. Here's the finished painting. You can see the light has really changed on the scene now. It's got a much more bluish cast because the clouds have cleared some and we're getting into sunset. So I don't want to go any further here. I want to take the color notes that I captured and take it back to the studio and see what I can come up with. I'll need to harmonize it a bit more. I left this pretty much unfinished. I just threw down some color notes for the rocks in the foreground and didn't try to define the rapids really at all, just kind of brushed them in really quickly. But I think the overall composition is nice and the illusion is there of depth, and I do like the snow, the way that's captured on that hillside. Yeah, I think there's something there, so I'll take it back to the studio. I may film that as well and throw that out on my Patreon. I may make a short video for YouTube and then throw the long extended version of how I finish this in the studio out on Patreon. Well, thank you for hanging out with me. I sure had fun even though it was freezing cold. Just a beautiful spot and good practice. Nice painting session. Thanks as always, and I'll see you on the trail.